unfortunately, an Afghan immigrant stabbed, I think, a 4-year-old child.
What happens when UK gets, or when the UK government gets overturned and it is all Islamic extremists?
Look, Shawn,
What happens if it switches?
brother, let me tell you this. I was telling this earlier. If we look at this as, hey, all Muslims are terrorists, you have 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. If they were terrorists, you would see it. You would see the problem. That's not the case. These individuals, and I'm not saying at the same time that there is not a terrorism problem in Islam. There is. And it's unfortunately true, and it's happening in Muslim countries are not taking the lead, taking action against it. Why is it that America should be the one to go and fix all of this stuff? Why isn't Saudi Arabia taking action? Or Qatar or UAE? I'll go back to the European stuff. The immigration. Europe has a open border policy. They allow everyone and anyone in. They don't vet. And then all of a sudden you see stabbings. I recently saw that unfortunately, an Afghan immigrant stabbed, I think, a 4-year-old child and his parent. And then when the cops arrested him, he was just laughing. You will see that laughter in America, here, in our own communities, unless that border is closed, the southern border, and unless you start vetting, and unless you start paying attention to who you are allowing into this country. Europe opened its borders, all of these migrants came in, and now they're dealing with it.
I mean, the other fear, too, is not just street crime. I mean, when I'm talking about our allies and we're talking about a no immigration policy, I mean, these are nuclear powers as well. And, you know, we bat back and forth with Iran. Well, what happens when UK gets, or when the UK government gets overturned and it is all Islamic extremists?
Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think one of the things too, we focus on like the immigration coming into a country, which we could flip something politically, but it's not the immigration. It's first off corruption in countries. There's a lot of corruption in Europe. And what happens with that corruption is people take advantage of it. Obviously, the one group that's taking the most advantage of it is the Muslim Brotherhood, right? I mean, that's why Switzerland is the number one country in Europe with terrorists in it, especially high-level terrorists, is because of the Muslim Brotherhood influence. Also, Qatar has a lot of influence and money in Europe, and they're a big piece of this. Turkey obviously can't seem to choose sides, and they do a lot of enabling for different terrorist groups, especially ISIS, right? And allow all these terrorists to flow through their borders. They provide them passports, etc. So if you don't deal with the Muslim Brotherhood, ban them, the influence of Qatar, and then you allow Turkey to stay in NATO with their actions, and you know they have a big play in Syria, then that's the problem, right? It's they're the ones causing the influence, putting the money into politics and making those shifts. So I think we need to be honest about them because that happens here too. Qatar has a huge influence in our universities, and we saw that kind of play out, right, with so much support of Hamas. The Muslim Brotherhood, we can't even get so the Muslim Brotherhood is banned in multiple countries, right? Like Saudi Arabia, like the Emirates. We can't ban them in the United States because they give so much money to both political parties, right? That's scary. So we need to deal with kind of the heads of the snake here.
Interesting.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
Look, 9/11 hijackers, right? Those 19 attackers and their supporters entered the U.S. legally. The State Department gave them visas. Nasser Ahmad Tawhidi in Oklahoma, who wanted to kill Americans on Election Day last year, and he was apprehended. He was evacuated from Afghanistan by who? By the agency, by the U.S. government. The open borders. The U.S. government keeps the southern border open, or for whatever reason, they kept that border open for 4 years. And we know for a fact that jihadists who want to kill Americans in the name of Islam entered the United States. These criminal organizations, these terrorists, they have hijacked Islam and Islamic symbols. They're not Muslim. They want to kill Americans in the name of Islam. And the U.S. government allows it. They allow these people to enter the country And in the case of 9/11, like I said, they even gave them visas. Now, look, I am an American Muslim. I've been warning the US government, the resistance that is fighting the terrorists on the ground for the past 4 years. They have been warning that these terrorists will attack you again. They're in your communities. The US government ignores me. The US government ignores Colonel Mann, Sarah Adams, the resistance, everyone. And then sadly, God forbid, the next terrorist attack will occur, as it did on 9/11. Then what happens? It's the same politicians in DC that ignore us now that will turn around and say all Muslims are terrorists. This is something we need to take care of right away.
I don't understand. I mean, there's a lot I don't understand, but why? What is this just? That's why I'm asking, do they want us to get attacked so that we can go and do another war?
I just don't see that level of coherence at our federal government level. And this is not administration specific. I just based on, for example, Shawn, what happened with the withdrawal in Afghanistan, that was, I think the National Security Council put out its evacuation memo on 14 August. Yep. Right. And I have it on good authority that thing was one hell of an afterthought. Like they were scrambling to get that. And this was like who was to prioritize for evacuation. Kabul fell on the 15th. This thing came out on the 14th. So there's nothing, at least that I've seen, that tells me that there's like a coherent approach to this of keeping it going. I think from my perspective, it's more of just an inability to really, it's hubris. I mean, it's arrogance at an institutional level to think that we really comprehend and appreciate just the persistence, will, and capacity of this threat. I mean, even if you just look at like where we are today is so reminiscent of pre-9/11. I went in, I think I was telling you guys yesterday when we did the briefing, I went into I'll just say it, a Carolina Duke game at Chapel Hill this past weekend, to see a storied basketball rivalry, right? 21,000 seat capacity in the Dean Smith Center, not one metal detector in main primary entry points. The only search that happened was if you had a bag, like if you declared a bag. So there were no metal detectors of a 21,000 seat venue. And I mean, anyone I would hope watching or hearing this like sits up at that, because that's new. And I gotta believe that's not isolated to Chapel Hill, and that is what I worry about more than anything else, is that humans are just ridiculously short memory, and we tend to forget and dismiss, and then we tell ourselves narratives that this isn't going to happen. You tell ourselves that the ocean's going to protect us, and we just need to focus on things here at home. But the reality is, this one has followed us home.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.